All right, I think we're live. We got three people in here already saying hello. Good evening to you, Mr. Messia. There we go. Brick Cook, good evening. Conkle City Farm, good evening to you. Come here, Max. I got the dog in here with me tonight because he is, well, he's being a good boy, but I got dinner sitting in there on the counter and I don't need to give him any kind of temptation to get up there. So we're locking him in here tonight with us. Hopefully he behaves. Down. There you go. Good boy. Well, hope everybody's doing well tonight. Hopefully I hold up. I've got a little bit of a cold coming on, I think. I feel just a little bit sickly, and it's just kind of starting to come on a little bit worse. So hopefully I can make it the whole hour. We'll see. May have to cut it a little bit short tonight. We'll see how I do. But good evening to you, Tyler. Hello to you, Lauren. And future homesteaders, good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see who we got here. Rob Holvey. Hello from the UK. Stayed up late to be with us tonight. Thank you. And this is I'm your Huckleberry from El Paso, Texas. Good evening, Charles, Robert, Jamie, Walt from Smoky, Southern California. Is it on fire again there, Walt? I haven't been watching the news, so I haven't been keeping up with that. Amy the Little Farmer, boy, that almost came out wrong. Amy the Little Farmer says hi from north end of 6B. I don't know what that means exactly, but hello. And Billy T, hello. Ramiro Rodriguez, hello to you. William Chapman, hey, from Alabama, he says. And Billy T from Youngstown, Ohio. Judy Lynn, hello to you. Hello to you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. And Jill. All right, let me get some disclaimers out of the way. In case this is your first time at a live broadcast, I do this pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central. And what else was I going to say? Judy says from the Pacific Northwest. Okay, I'll try to remember that. I'll probably forget. Let me mark my spot here so I don't forget where I was. Okay, pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central, unless something gets in the way, I can't make it. You know, that happens from time to time. This is a family-friendly chat, so, keep your comments family-friendly. You only get the one warning. Don't start cussing anybody, calling anybody names. Don't, use profanity or sexual innuendos, any of that kind of stuff. Keep it family friendly or we will have to boot you out of here. The other thing I was going to say, I don't have a topic planned. This is just pretty much an Ask Me Anything session. So I just do my best to answer all the chats that come in. Give me time to get to yours if you've asked your question. If you see that I've skipped it and I've gone on down past, because that happens sometimes, I miss it. I'm only human, I make mistakes. Then feel free to ask again if you want to at that point. So Boris, hello to you. Roger is here from New Mexico. Good evening. And Walt says growing zone 6B is my guess. Hey, there you go. That's a good guess there, Walt. I bet you're right. All right, Heaven Bound Homestead says, I have a question. The day you see your quail mate, when should you collect the eggs to incubate? Okay, good question. In other words, how long do you need to wait when they start mating until the eggs are considered fertile? Now, you can check them to see if they're fertile or not. Basically, what you do is you crack the egg open, you dump it out, you look at the yolk. There should be a little white dot on the yolk, and that just means that it's a mature egg. That doesn't mean it's fertile. But if it's fertile, you'll see a little bullseye ring around it. It's real faint, but it is a darker ring around that white dot in the middle, and that means it's a fertile egg. But to answer your question, if you just want to just say, okay, they're probably fertile at this point, usually about 2 weeks. I wait about 2 weeks from the time they start crowing and start mating, then consider the eggs fertile and usually do pretty good with that. So hopefully that answered that for you. William says, it ended up with 3 out of 30 after the humidity issues. 3 out of 30, that's rough, but hey, at least you got a couple out of there. Congratulations on your hatch. Walt agrees with me. He says a week or two after the first mating. Lauren says, so I've been planning on getting quail, but I just learned that I have to have a game bird permit and an inspection. Do you know what they will be inspecting and looking for? Okay, a couple of things. You're probably, if you're getting Coturnix quail, you should not need a permit for that. There's nowhere that needs a permit. If you're looking at bobwhite quail or a native quail species, that's when a requirement or a permit and an inspection is probably required. So if you called up and just said, I want to keep quail, maybe you checked with your conservation department or something like that, you may want to just specify to them that it's Coturnix quail, it's a non-native bird. You're not going to require any kind of permit or any kind of inspection for that. If they were going to inspect you, if you're wanting to keep bobwhites or a native bird and you're going to need that inspection, what they're going to be inspecting for is probably going to be just like your cage systems. How do you plan on dealing with the waste? How do you you know, what are you going to be how are you going to be feeding them? How are they going to be housed? You know, those kinds of things. So it's probably not that big of a deal. A permit's pretty easy to get, honestly. They just want to make sure that you're going to keep them in a humane way and keep them sanitary and clean. And dog's licking himself, distracting me. So I think that's it. Hopefully I got that answered for you. But again, if you're looking at keeping Coturnix quail, which, you know, if you're looking to keep them for meat and eggs, that's the way to go. You shouldn't need any permits, any kind of inspections, anything. They're a non-native bird. They don't require it. All right, Mr. Popular says, my quail just had a heart attack and died. My goodness, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know that I've ever had that happen with me, but man, that's terrible. All right, Future Homesteader says, I followed your video on building a quail house, which I love. How many quail can I keep in it? And also, what is your management process? Keeping and replacing and eating. Okay. All right, so Walt's got a good answer for you there. He says about a square foot per adult bird, and that's the answer I was going to give to you. Figure about a square foot per bird is about the average. You can pack them a little bit denser than that if you're using above ground wire cages. So I don't know exactly what size your cage is. I think mine are 6x3. That's about 18 square foot, and I can get about 22 birds in there pretty comfortably. It's not that big of a deal. As far as how I manage them, rotate them out. Let's see, I don't have a strict guideline as to how fast I replace birds and eat them and all those kinds of things. What I typically do is I try to keep track of them, just roughly get them, you know, get my hens and roosters replaced about every 2 years. But I'm sure that I actually go faster than that, because what I tend to do is, you know, I hatch out my birds and I just throw my birds in with my other birds and let them grow out there. When they get to adult size, then I go through and process the smallest birds. Some of those are going to be my existing birds and some of those are going to be my new birds. So it's, you know, sometimes they get replaced a lot sooner than 2 years, but, you know, about every 2 years, if you look at replacing them about that often, you're going to have plenty of good results, and that's plenty fine. So hopefully that answered that one for you. And hopefully your cage turned out well. Thanks for following the video, and I'm glad to hear that you really liked it. All right, Lauren says, I'm glad to hear that. Thanks. I'm so glad to hear that. What did I answer for you, Lauren? I've forgotten already. Oh, yeah, okay, got it. I'm with you now. Good, yeah, no problem. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully you don't need any permits. I don't think you will. You shouldn't anyway. Mr. Messiah says, hi, Chris from Pakistan, your regular viewer. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you stopping by the live broadcast. Good grief, what time is it in Pakistan? It's got to be like early morning there. Thank you for staying up late. We got people from all over the world in here, and I'm just so glad that we have such a diverse group. We all get along, that you know, we can be friends with each other, that some of you guys stay up late, you join us on the live broadcast, and you watch my videos. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Robert Hermson, I think it is, says, when working with an automatic waterer with quail and rabbits, I use the cups for the quail. Can I use them for rabbits as well, or should I use the nipple kind? Probably should use the nipple kind. The rabbits are going to chew on just about everything, and if you try to use those cups for the rabbits, they're going to have a hard time using them, first of all, because they don't have beaks, so they don't poke down in the cup to get water. It's a little bit different, and they're going to end up chewing them up, and you really don't want your rabbits chewing on plastic. So really would be best to use the water nipples. All right, Judy says, how do you store eggs and how long before incubating? Okay, so good question. Usually you can store them for about 10 days, roughly, before the fertility really starts to drop. You want to store them in an environment, though, that's not too hot, not too cold. So, no, you can't go out there, buddy. I'm sorry. Down. Down. There you go. Good boy. Sorry, the dog's being distracting. Not too hot, not too cold. So you want to store them preferably between about 55 degrees and about 75 degrees. Probably 55 to 70 is probably ideal, but if they get up to 75, that's going to be just fine. What I typically do is I just have a cooler. It's a small cooler. I put the eggs in an egg carton, just like a chicken egg carton. And then I set them on end inside the cooler. Like you might prop something up on the end, try to rotate them a couple of times a day. So as I bring in new eggs, the egg curtain gets turned around so that, you know, it was sitting like this, and now it's sitting like this. That's all the rotation they need, if that makes sense. And I put a little ice pack in there. It's not ice, it's one of those freezer packs that you stick in the freezer and it gets cold. And I just throw that on the bottom of the cooler, and that kind of keeps it cool, but not too cold. That's how I store them myself. You could do it a number of different ways. Really don't want to put them in the refrigerator. That's a little too chilly for them. If you know, in the wintertime, I just leave them out in the garage because the garage stays about 55 to 60 degrees, and that works out just fine. So hopefully that answers that question for you, Judy. All right, Jamie says, what do you use for a light source during the winter on your outdoor quail hutches? Is it something I can buy or is it homemade? Good question, Jamie. I'm actually using prototypes for a light that I'm getting ready to run Kickstarter on and trying to get the funds together to order. It's a solar light with a timer on it, so you can program it to come on at a certain time, go off at a certain time. I have it come on about 3:30 in the morning, go off about 7:30 in the morning, so they get an extra couple hours of light during the wintertime. And like I said, it's solar powered. It works great. There is, let me double check and make sure I've got it and see if I can leave that in the comments for you guys. Hang on just one second. Let's see if I got the website right. Yep, it's slightlyredneck.com solar light. You can sign up there if you would like to. And I'll put the link down here in the comments section. There we go. Hopefully it's down there. You guys can see it. So you can go to that link if you want to. You can sign up, and then you'll be notified when it goes live on Kickstarter. It won't be ready for this winter, of course. It'll probably be mid-spring or so if we get the funding before it becomes available to you. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Kickstarter, the way Kickstarter works, there's no risk to you. If whenever I launch the Kickstarter, the lights are going to go for about $40 a piece. There will be some early bird discounts. You might be able to get them for a little bit cheaper than that if you jump in real quick. And you pledge to give that much money, but you're not charged for it unless we hit our funding goal. So if we hit the funding goal that I set for the campaign, then you're charged the money that you pledged that you were going to charge, and you get the light whenever it becomes available, which will be, like I said, several months down the road. Hopefully that makes sense. But there's no risk to you. You're not charged anything unless we hit our funding goal. And if we do hit our funding goal, then you get the light whenever it becomes available to us. So again, I'm going to need a lot of help, guys. If even if it's something you're not interested in, if you give me a hand, just share that in the groups that you're in. Encourage other people to participate in that, because I know there's lots of people that are looking for lights. And look at that. Somebody's already signed up. I just got a notification. So make sure you guys make sure I'm not in your spam folder. I don't send out a lot of email. I only send it out when it's, something I want to notify everybody of, like it's getting ready to launch, those kinds of things. So make sure I'm not in your spam folder. So when I do send you email, you actually get the email. So, and I won't share your email address with anybody. Don't worry about it. It's mine alone. I don't abuse it. Those of you guys that have signed up before, you'll know. In fact, I probably don't email enough, honestly. All right, let me grab a drink here. Where are we at here? Lost track. What light source do you use? Okay, I think I got that answered for you, Jamie. All right, Billy says, I just got some rabbits to breed for meat, and I'm about to breed my California rabbit to a New Zealand, and it will be my California's first time. How can I help the litter be successful? Sorry about that. I'm having a hard time reading tonight. All right, so you got some meat rabbits and it's the first time breeding them. There's probably not much you have to do. I mean, first time moms are always a little bit iffy. The only thing you really have to worry about, though, is if she doesn't have the babies in the nest box. That's the thing to really watch for. Other than that, they usually do just fine. There's not really anything you need to do special. Put the nest box in about 27 days after you've bred her. Watch her real close for the next couple of days. And when she has her babies, just make sure she has them in the nest box. If she doesn't, if she ends up having them on the cage floor, then pick them up, put them in the nest box as soon as you can, and she'll probably take care of them just fine. It's rare that a mother really abandons her young or doesn't take care of them, or that you have to do anything special. You probably won't see her ever feeding them, so don't freak out about that. Just they'll probably getting fed. It's probably fine. I've never actually had a rabbit that just wouldn't take care of her babies. I know some people have, but it's never happened to me. I do have them quite frequently that will, first time, they'll not have them in the nest box. They'll have them on the cage floor, and I end up having to help out, pick them up, put them in the nest box for them. But that's really about as far as you have to go with it usually. All right, excuse me. Where were we? All right, it says, this is GM, says, I have an outdoor aviary, 6x8, inside 2x8 of a dry enclosed area. One suddenly passed away after a rainstorm. She was found inside dead. Do you think she died from hypothermia? She was only 5 months old. It's doubtful. Who knows? I mean, sometimes birds just die, and you never know why. Animals in general, sometimes it just happens. It could be some kind of illness. It's doubtful that it was hypothermia. At 5 months old, they usually handle, the changes in temperature and things like that pretty well, and you're probably not going to have to worry about that. I just can't tell you why, honestly. It could be maybe because of the rainstorm she got wet and maybe got chilled, but it's like I said, it's pretty rare. That's not. It's unlikely that that's the cause from it. She may have just been weak and sick to begin with, and that little extra from the rainstorm or whatever is good grief. I got like 5 or 6 people signing up for the to be notified. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that. It could be, like I said, she was sick or weak to begin with, and then that little bit extra bit just kind of pushed her over the edge. You just don't know. As long as it's just the one, it doesn't keep happening, there's probably not much you need to worry about. All right, Amy Little Farmer says, nibble water valves for rabbit. They will chew up the cups. Oh, yeah, agreeing with what I said earlier, or actually probably said it before I actually said it, but I wasn't that far in the chat. Jamie says, how many times do you give your rabbits before you butcher if they refuse to breed, or if you breed them and they don't get pregnant? Someone told me to put my doe with the buck every 2 weeks to ensure. Okay, I don't really agree with that, necessarily putting them in every 2 weeks. I would say you breed them, maybe try again 8 hours later or the next day just to ensure. But excuse me, there's a lot of factors that go into that, whether the rabbit's going to get pregnant or not. It could be if it's really hot outside, maybe the buck's a little bit sterile at that point because of the heat. You may have to give him a little while to recover before you count it out as the doe. I usually give my does about 3 strikes, but that's more of if they don't have big litters, if they abandon their litters, if they don't have their babies in the nest box, if they're just not good mothers, I give them 2 or 3 times before I give up on them. But just not getting pregnant, if you're sure, if you've got more rabbits and you're breeding that buck to more rabbits and they're getting pregnant, but she's not, then yeah, that's a sign that it's with the doe. You might try to put her on just a little bit of a diet if she's overweight, and give her a couple of attempts, maybe a couple of months. And if she doesn't get pregnant within a couple of months after trying, fairly regularly, then you might look at getting a replacement for her. Hopefully that answers that. It's a little bit kind of, I'm sorry guys, I'm starting to feel a little bit sick. Like I said, coming down with something. I may not be thinking real coherently today, so I may be a little jumbled up. Not that I guess that's pretty normal for me, honestly. John says, hi, Chris from New Jersey. Hello, John. Sharon Sullivan says, will Coturnix quail eat slugs and snails? I don't think mine have ever eaten them. I've seen slugs and snails in their cages, and I've never seen them go after them. They may not. I don't know. It's something worth trying, I guess. All right, Mr. Messia says, yeah, it's early morning here. I started raising quails, and your videos are really helpful. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. And again, thanks for either staying up late or getting up early, one or the other, and joining us for a live broadcast. I appreciate it. I wish I could do these at different times, but it just doesn't work out with my schedule, unfortunately. All right, Owen Miller says, hi, how are you doing? I think is what he's trying to say. Doing well. Thank you very much, Owen. I appreciate that. All right, Joe Fuller says, have you had any experience with heated water? I'm worried about having frozen water in the winter, and we often have regular temps in the 20s and single digits. No, I don't bother with heated water. There's a couple of reasons I don't bother with a heated water system. It's not enough just to heat the water that's in your buckets or whatever. That's not going to keep your system from freezing up. Well, I don't know, maybe if you get in the 20s it will, but not when it gets down below 0 like it does here on a fairly regular basis. Single digits, like you said, down to the single digits, that happens. And there's a heated, bucket of heated water with a hose running out of it. It's not going to keep the water from freezing up in the hose unless you're circulating the water through there somehow. So you'd have to have a pump system that keeps it circulating. And even then, you're going to have a hard problem with the water not freezing up at the nipples. And so it may be fine running through the system, but they're not going to be able to get a drink because it's frozen right there at the nipple. So, I don't bother with it myself, just refill. I don't know if you're talking about rabbits or quail, but either way, it's about the same thing. With rabbits, I switched to big rubber Crocs, and I just fill them about halfway with water in the morning. They go in and they drink as much as they can right then. And then in the afternoons, evenings, when I get home from work, I go and pour some more water on top of that, fill it the rest of the way up, whatever they haven't drank, because it's frozen by that time. And they'll go back and they'll drink their fill of it then. and then knock the ice out the next morning and start all over, and they do just fine. They get plenty of water. It's no concern. It's pretty much the same thing with the quail, although I use little Tupperware, like my feeders, little Tupperware style containers with some holes cut in the side so they can stick their head through. And I put some water in the bottom of that. They come and drink it whenever I put water in there. And then, by the evening when I get home, it's frozen. I add some more water on top of that, let them get their drinks then. And then the next morning, I knock the ice out of it and start all over again. And it works just fine. That's all the water they need. It's not a big concern, really. All right, Donald says, what size wire do you use for the bottoms of your rabbit cages? Rabbit cages I use, boy, I always get asked this. I haven't built cages in such a long time. I forget. Is it 1 by 2 inch wire, I believe? 1 by 2 inch. Or maybe it's 1/2 inch by 1 inch. No, I think it's 1 by 2. Let me, hang on a second. I got a list here of all the stuff that I use. I can't ever remember wire sizes. Let me see if I can find that list real quick. It is right there. Is that it? Maybe. Okay, sorry. 1/2 by 1 inch wire on the bottom on the floor. That's what I use on the cage floor. So I know that's silly. I can't ever remember those numbers. All right, where are we at here? Jim says, can quail get too much light? How much light is too much? Will they be already programmed when they ship? Will they be already programmed when they ship? Okay, kind of, I don't know what you mean by already programmed, but okay, hang on a second. I'm gonna grab a drink. So, can they get too much light? I don't know that there's a definitive answer to that. I'll give you my personal opinion on it. Yeah, I think they probably can get too much light. And too much light is 24 hours a day. I'd say probably anything more than about 20 hours a day is too much light. They do need a period of darkness. I believe that. I believe every animal, well, for the most part, every animal needs a period of darkness, just because it's the way our bodies work. It's the way we're programmed by our Creator to have that nighttime, daytime, nighttime, daytime. And I think that, yeah, having light all the time can cause some problems. I did speak with somebody the other day that had tried 24 hours a day of light, and said that he found that his birds ate a lot more and were a lot more aggressive with that. And I think that's probably what you're going to find with most animals if you give them light 24 hours a day. So that would be my answer to that. As far as they already programmed when they ship, I wouldn't suggest shipping live birds. They just don't typically do very well. But if you're going to, it's fine. Go ahead. You can start with those. If you get eggs from them, you can incubate them and you can replace them later on. But they shouldn't be, no, they're not necessarily programmed that, to how much light they need a day or anything like that. It's just a natural cycle. And they'll get used to it, whatever you put in their cages. If you want to, keep them in the dark during the day in a dark room and then run the lights at night to keep them up, they'll change, they'll get adjusted to that. It's not that big of a deal. But don't give them 24 hours a day of light. That's why it's nice to have a timer on your lights to be able to turn them off. The solar lights I had before, because I don't have power run to my quail hutches, solar lights I had before were an automatic on at night. But the problem with that is that they stayed on, almost all night long. They stayed on until the battery ran dead. And, I wanted a light that I could turn on and off when I wanted it to. And these were working out pretty well, being able to you program it in to start and to stop, and it turns on, it turns off at the right time. So, all right. TH55269 says, I'm at lockdown and can't get humidity up past 70%. Older LG, all trays full, plus 2 sponges in the bottom. Any suggestions? I use a tiny fuel hose with a syringe water without opening the baiter. You're running a Little Giant, I think it is. Yeah, Little Giant. I wouldn't trust the incubator or the humidity gauge on those too much. If you're getting the windows to fog up in the incubator, you've got plenty of humidity in there. I wouldn't stress too much about trying to add too much more to that. Humidity gauges in those things are not, and it's not just the Little Giants, really any humidity gauge is not always going to be that accurate. To get true humidity, you really need relative humidity. And you need to do that with, it's done by calculations. You take basically the temperature of the water and the temperature of the air, and then you do some math, and that tells you what the relative humidity is. It sounds like you're doing everything that you need to do. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Fill up the trays in the bottom of the incubator and just let it go. I wouldn't really worry too much about anything past that. That's how I feel about it anyway. All right. Christian Acevedo says, hello, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. Sharon says, hi, Chris. I have 7 blue New Zealand kits, still waiting for American chinchilla kits. Congratulations on your new rabbits, and hopefully the chinchillas will have the babies soon. All right, Christian says, what are you going to do? More cooking videos. I need to do some more cooking videos, don't I? Maybe I'll do those sometime soon. Rhonda is here, says, wanted to say hi, but can't stay. Well, thanks for stopping by, Rhonda. I appreciate it, and have a good evening. Hacker Gress says, hello from Indiana. Hello to you, and good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Walt says, chickens love slugs and snails. They do, and so do ducks. But yeah, there's Judy. She says, ducks sure eat slugs, not sure about snails. Heavenbound Homestead says, my male eats grasshoppers and small bugs. Yeah, mine will eat small bugs for sure, but I've never seen them go after a snail or a slug. They'll go after grubs sometimes, but never seen them go after a snail or slug. Who knows? Billy T says, like I said earlier, I just got rabbits for meat, and when I bought them, I paid for 3 does and 1 buck, but a week later, I had them, and I found out they gave me $2. What should I do with the buck? Well, if you can contact the seller, you might be able to get them to take it back. Maybe give you your money back for that one, or trade it out if they have another doe. That's a pretty common thing. Don't be mad at them about it. It's difficult to tell rabbit gender sometimes, especially on young rabbits. And there's a pretty common saying that goes around the rabbit community of the sex change fairy. You're sure you've got does, and then all of a sudden one of them turns out to be a buck or something like that. So don't stress about that too much. I would look at, maybe contacting the breeder that you bought them from, see if they'll take them back, give you your money back, or trade it out for a doe. Maybe they'll make it right that way. They may not have the ability to do that. If they don't, you're stuck with the rabbit. If you don't want $2, then look at selling it. Just offer it up on Craigslist. See if somebody wants to buy it from you, or process it and eat it. If that's what you're raising rabbits for, there's some meat rabbit right there. It's kind of up to you on how you want to handle that. Those are the ways that I would do it. Bushcraft Channel says, what do I do for my quail to lay eggs? The biggest thing is add light. They need 14 hours a day of light to lay eggs, and they got to be old enough, 8 to 12 weeks roughly. Give them light, give them about 14 hours a day of light. You may have to add a light to extend the daylight to 14 hours a day. Give them about 2 weeks. They should start laying on a fairly regular basis. Don't move them around a lot. Stress factors will keep them from laying too. So if you're moving them from one cage to another, doing all those kinds of things, they'll stop laying for a while, or not start laying for a little while. So other than that, just give them some light and be patient with them. That's about all you can do. Okay. Christian says, how do you store quail eggs and how many days? I think we actually already answered this, but Christian, you may not have been in the video or in the chat whenever we did, so I'll answer it again for you. That was almost the exact same question we asked earlier too. So, where are we at here? I got sidetracked. Sorry. How do I store eggs? Okay, store eggs, quail eggs, in about 55 to 75 degree temperature. That's the best way to store them. You don't want them to get too much warmer than that or too much colder than that. You need to turn them a couple of times a day, and the way I do that is I just put them in an egg carton, like a chicken egg carton. I set them up on end. Like, I do it in a cooler, but you could do it anyway. So I'd usually take like a little mason jar and set it in there, like one of those little jelly jars. So the carton sits at an angle like this. And then whenever I get eggs, I rotate it so it sits on an angle like that. So twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, it gets flip-flopped, and that's all you need to do to turn the eggs. I put them in a cooler, and I use a little frozen, like a freezer cooler. I don't know what you call them, ice pack. It's not ice. It's one of those things you stick in the freezer, you freeze it, and then you put it in your cooler. I use one of those. I just throw it in the bottom of the cooler. I have 2 of them, so I change them out whenever I get eggs. So they get changed out in the morning, the evening, whenever I check on them and rotate the eggs and all that. And that keeps it cool but not too cold. That's how I do it. You can store them for about 10 days before you have to worry about them becoming infertile. Right about 10 days. I usually don't do more than a week because I got plenty of eggs in a week. But you can store them up to about 10 days. Hopefully that answers that for you. All right, Jill says, I think they were asking about your solar lights will be programmed. Oh, good question. I'm sorry, Jill. Or whoever asked that question earlier. I've forgotten who it was already. GM, that was who asked that question. I'm sorry, I misunderstood completely. No, the solar light won't come to you programmed. What it is, let's see, do I have an old prototype in here? I don't have it. It's got a programmable timer on it. So you set the time, you set the whether it's AM or PM, and then you set the timer. Now it's more sophisticated than we need, honestly. You could set it to turn on and off. You've got like 10 different timers you can set on there, and you can set it up in any kind of way you want. You can set it to go on and off on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays only, or every day of the week, or however you want to set it up. I just use the one timer. I set it to come on at 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning, go off at 7:30 in the morning, and I set that to go on every day of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's how I do it, but you program it yourself. It's pretty easy to do. Stick it out on your quail hutch. You will need to protect it from the weather because it's not waterproof. So if it rains real hard and it's out in the weather, the timer will quit working until it dries out. So it doesn't ruin it, but it just quits working until it dries out. Now, I'm sure if you let it out there and get soaking wet and then dry and soaking wet and dry over and over and over again, probably would destroy it. But you need to kind of protect it from the weather a little bit. Put it in a dry place. Put it on your quail hutches. I usually set my timer inside the hutch on the closed-in section. The light sits right up above it. Solar panel sits outside. It works just fine for me. So hopefully that answered that for you. All right. TH55269 says, I have the humidity meter inside. Well, yeah, but humidity meters in general are just not always very accurate. And again, I wouldn't worry about it too much. As long as your windows are fogging up, if you got little droplets of water forming on the windows of the incubator, again, your humidity's fine. Don't worry about it. All right, Miss Cia says, I'm expecting my first quail hatch by 30th of this month. Is it necessary to have temperature-controlled brooder? No, it's not necessary to have a temperature-controlled brooder. You can control the temperature yourself just fine. If you've got a thermometer, you can stick it in there and see what temperature it is. If you've got a heat lamp on top of it, move it closer to make it warmer, move it further away to make it cooler. And you can do that yourself. Quail, it's not that picky. In fact, you really want to get it about 100 degrees to start with. But, I had my brooder. I was having a hard time getting it up to 100 degrees. It was only about 94 degrees, I think, for the first couple of days the birds were in there, and they're fine. It's not that big of a deal. So, all right, Robert Hermson says, can you, the temperature controlled brooder makes it easier for sure, because you just set the thing and walk away and it controls the temperature, and that's much, much easier, but you don't have to do that. You can do it yourself. All right, Robert says, can you go through the breeding cycle with rabbits again with when to add the nest box and when to expect birth, trying to write down notes? Sure, I can go through it. Hopefully you can write down the note. I know I talk too fast. I'm sorry. I can't help that. I'm a fast talker. That's the way it goes. And I talk with my hands too. My mom used to say, tie your hands down so you can't talk. But anyway, that's not what you're asking about. So, yeah, rabbits usually will give birth about 30 days after they're bred. So right about 30 days. Now, sometimes it's 29, sometimes it's 33, sometimes it's 34 even, but right about 30 days is pretty standard. So I would always put the nest box in around day 27, day 28. And honestly, what I do is I look for the rabbit to tell me when she's ready for the nest box. So around day 27, day 28, after she was bred, I start taking a handful of straw out with me when I go to feed. Or in the afternoon, I'll come out and just take a handful of straw and throw it in her cage. And if she picks it up, starts running around the cage with it hanging out both sides of her mouth, it'll be pretty obvious what I'm talking about. It won't be like she's just kind of picking at it or nibbling at it or anything like that. She'll gather it together and pick it up, and it'll be hanging out like a big bunch of straw hanging out both sides of her mouth. You'll know it when you see it, trust me. That means she's getting ready to have her babies, and she will probably do that in the next day or so. And hang on a second. We got what almost kind of come across as racist comments there. Hail President Trump, Trump 2020. Generally, watch what you're saying. You can keep your, I'm okay with you supporting President Trump. That's okay. But we don't need this Keep America White stuff in here. We are not a racist group here. Everybody here is welcome. And if you can't accept that, then you're going to have to leave. This is your one warning. I don't want to see it again. Please be respectful of everybody in here. We don't need it. Nobody's going to disrespect you. We don't need you disrespecting anybody else. And that was on the verge of being pretty bad. So, all right. Where was I at here? All right, so the breeding cycle for rabbits. I think maybe I got that, Robert. So again, when she goes running around with the straw sticking out both sides of her mouth, then that means she's probably getting ready to have her babies usually that night, the next day. Put the nest box in if you haven't already. That's how I do it usually. But I start checking around day 27, day 28. Whenever I see that activity, the nest box goes in. If you put it in too early, she tends to want to use it as like a litter box, and then you end up having to clean it out and redoing it. And so it's best that way. So, all right. Well, hopefully I got that answered for you, Robert. If you have more questions on it, let me know. I'll be happy to go through it again for you. Kathy says, I think GM meant your lights are developing for, oh, okay. Yeah, I think we got that one answered now. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Messiah says, what temperature should I have for the young ones? Okay, I think I probably answered that already, but just in case, about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So what is that, about 37 degrees Celsius? I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me. I'm a backwards American. We use Fahrenheit and imperial and not the metric system. So I don't know Celsius that well, but you can do the math yourself, or you can look it up and tell what that is. About 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the first week at least. And then I usually drop it about 10 degrees after a week. And then, so like the second week, I drop it to 90 degrees. And then by about usually by about 2.5 weeks old, they're starting to feather out. So I'll give them a couple of days at 90 degrees, drop it to 95 or excuse me, drop it to 85 or even 80 degrees. Give them a couple of days at that. Drop it down to about 70 degrees or 75 degrees. Give them a couple of days at that. And by that time, I'm usually just taking the light off of them and they're fine. So hopefully that answers that question for you. All right, Walt says live quail chicks don't ship well. Best way to start is by local chicks. Even if you have to drive a ways and get the second chick choices, is to buy an incubator and get eggs shipped to you. Yeah, good point. And he says mail order eggs don't have good hatch rates. Well, sometimes they do. I've had pretty decent hatch rates from my mail order eggs, but yeah, you're right. It's not usually not going to be as good as the eggs that your own birds will produce and you're incubating yourself. All right. Gage Parker, excuse me, is here. Says, how's it going? It's going well. How are you? Walt says, good. Christian says, let's see, I was at the park and there were wild duck and then Muscovy duck and runner duck. Yeah, we have lots of ducks and things running around the parks around here. It's a lot of geese too this time of year. All right. Sharon Sullivan says, can you add cat food or dry cat food to supplement protein in quail feed if it is low? Yes, you absolutely can. I did shoot a video on that a while back about how to calculate the protein ratios and how much you need to add. Cat food is a good alternative. So is catfish food. They're cheap, easy to come by. You can add that in, mix that in with your food to get the protein up. So, all right. Gage says about to get some more quails. Well, good. Hopefully they do well. Good grief, that collar's noisy. Come here, Max. I've got a new collar for my dog here. I don't know. Can you see him? Come on up here. Come on. So I push this little button on the side. I don't even know if you guys can tell. It lights up. It's not really showing up on camera, is it? Lights up. But the problem is it's got this big plastic switch right there. So when he shakes his head, let me turn it off because we don't need it on. What do you call it? The tags rattle against that thing, makes all kinds of racket. It's a good boy. Okay, off. Good boy. All right. Robert says, wait a minute. GM says, yes, Kathy, that is what I meant. I should have been more specific. It's hard with the delay. Thanks for answering, Chris. You have inspired me to grow my own meat, and I'm considering getting rabbits. Well, I'm glad that you're finding it helpful. So, where are we at here? Oh, I'm having a hard time tonight, guys. I'm sorry. Robert Hermson says, everyone hit the like button. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate that. GM says, do you think I would need to house the rabbit hutches outside my quail aviary, or do you think I could group them together? Well, it depends on your aviary and your setup and all that, but yeah, you could probably group them together. I don't know of any diseases necessarily that will transfer from rabbits to quail. The only thing you'd have to worry about is the quail getting under the rabbit hutches and getting, rabbit droppings and urine and those kinds of things on them, because if the rabbits are in hutches above ground, that would be the only thing I would worry about. But even then, I don't know that that's a big concern. The quail would probably have a great time picking out, any kind of insect larvae and that kind of stuff that do end up in the rabbit droppings. So I mean, it's probably going to be just fine. I don't see why you shouldn't. All right, Walt says some breeders may want new buck genetics. Offer to trade your buck for their doe. It's a good suggestion, Walt. You might be able to find somebody that would be willing to trade you. All right, Heaven Bound Homestead said, I've been adding cat food to my turkey scratch for a while now, and they're doing great. I cannot afford quail food. Yeah, I know how that goes. That can be difficult to find. I get mine from a local feed mill, and I always suggest looking at a local feed store, farm supply store. Look at a local place over a chain. You're almost always going to get better deals. And if they don't carry it, ask if they can order it in, because sometimes they can order it in, and it's not that bad. All right. Odai Ali, I think it is, says, how are you? I'm doing well, thanks, and hopefully you are too. Ultimate Outdoor Boy says, I have a pigeon with a broken wing or something to that nature. It is at the socket near the shoulder. Do you know how to fix it? Oh boy, I couldn't help you with that, unfortunately. You may have to get a vet or somebody involved. I don't know. No, I'm sorry, not my area of expertise. I can't give you really much advice on how to fix that. I would think it would involve some kind of, sling, but I don't know if it would heal right. I don't know the best way to handle that. If it was me, I would probably, put it in some kind of sling or something where you can hold it in where it quits trying to use it, and hold it in place and give it some time and see if that heals. But I don't know the best way to go about that. All right, Jill says, my New Zealand White has been fairly consistent with having 6 kits per litter. Is there anything that I can do to increase the litter size? Probably not. 6 kits per litter is a little bit of a small litter. Now you might try breeding again, like twice in the same day. So you breed her in the morning and then maybe again 12 hours later. I don't think I would try breeding her much after that. I think that's a little bit rough on the rabbits if they're already pregnant, to try to breed them again days later. That may help a little bit, but chances are it's just genetically, that's how many rabbits she has. That's been my experience anyway with rabbits, is that, what was I going to say? Sorry, I keep getting distracted by things. My experience with rabbits is that, they have as many babies as they're going to have, and that's typically what they have. I don't know if that makes sense, but, I breed my rabbit one time and she has 10 babies. The next time she's probably going to have 10 or 9 or 11, real close to the same amount though. It's rare. And sometimes the first time mothers though will have a little bit of a smaller litter, and you might just give them another try and maybe they'll be better the next time. All right. Native Illyrian says, Hey guys, long time no see. I was just wondering how long you can leave quail in the incubator. Some say the yolk sac lasts 24 hours. Yeah, easily 24 hours. You can leave them in there up to 72 hours. I typically go about 36 hours roughly when the first one is hatched, and then I remove all the ones that have hatched, and after that I do it every 24 hours. So new ones hatch, 24 hours later they get removed, 24 hours after that, if there's new ones, they get removed once they're dried off. But the very first one, I try to give them at least 36 hours, give everything that's going to hatch right then a chance to hatch. You really want to avoid opening the incubator a whole lot when you've got birds that have pipped the shell but haven't hatched out. That can cause them to get shrink wrapped inside the egg, so to speak, and get stuck and not hatch and then end up dying. So that's why I go 36 hours or 48 even. But I try not to go much over 48. You can go 72, but there are times when I've gone 72 hours and I found a couple of dead birds in the incubator. And I'm sure they didn't die because I went 72 hours, but I don't want to leave them in there for 72 hours dead. I want to get that cleaned out. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Walt says, adding lights to coop is better to have lights come on before daylight or after dusk. I don't think it really matters that much, Walt. I kind of like the idea of them coming on in the morning because I like Now, quail aren't like chickens. With chickens, I think it's probably important that you have it on in the morning and not at night, because if you have a light that comes on at night as the sun's starting to go down and then goes off at a certain time, chickens especially like to roost at night. And so they'll, if there's light out, they're going to be active and they're going to be moving around. Then all of a sudden, boom, it's dark. There isn't that gradual decrease to darkness where they know, oh, I got to get my roost, I got to get ready for bed, and all those kinds of things. Quail aren't really like that. Quail just kind of tend to just wherever they're at, they just kind of sleep wherever. They don't really, I don't know. They don't roost, so it's not the same. I don't think it's as big of a deal with the quail. But I do like the idea of, instead of plunging them into darkness at night, waking them up and getting them going earlier in the morning. I think that's better, but it's just a personal opinion. All right, so where are we at here? Christian says, have you been to any poultry swap? When are you going to get another doe? You know, I have been to poultry swaps. We've got a pretty big one that runs here at one of the local feed stores. And it's a great one. I haven't been in a while. I don't typically buy rabbits from the poultry swap because you just don't know what you're getting. I mean, anybody can show up at the poultry swap and who knows what they're breeding. But yeah, I do plan on getting another doe. I'm keeping my eyes out, just looking for a good one. And when I come across one, I'll pick one up. All right, excuse me. Where are we at here? Gun Clinging Palin says, if you need a moderator, brother, give me a wrench and I'll keep it clean for you as well. I thank you very much. I appreciate that. So far, you know, there's been a couple of times where we've had some pretty rough things in here, but so far, I've been catching them here lately once I figured out how to boot people out when I needed to. So I think we're okay. Walt says a crock pot will shut up a rooster. Did we have a question about that? Did I miss that? Yes, a crock pot will shut up a rooster for sure. And that bee chick, what a great name, says, hey, just got here from Australia. Well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. And glad you're here. Australia, that's got to be pretty late at night, too. Thanks for staying up late. Where are we at here? And then goes on to say, I have Japanese eggs in the incubator due yesterday. No pips yet. Suggestions? Just wait. That's about all you can do at this point. You know, as long as your temperature is right, everything, if they were due to hatch yesterday, just give them some more time. You know, I've noticed the quail, sometimes they hatch a little bit early, sometimes they hatch a little bit late. My thought on that, excuse me, my thought on that, though, is if they're hatching late, and it sounds like they are hatching a little bit late, hopefully you still get a pretty decent hatch out of that. But you might look at your incubator temperature, you know, get a couple of non-digital thermometers, make sure they're calibrated and they're accurate. Learn how to, you know, you can look up how to calibrate a thermometer and check how to do it. Throw those in your incubator. Wait till your hatch is done, of course. Do this with an empty incubator. Throw your thermometers in there and verify that your incubator temperature is reading correctly. So, and I always say get 2 of them, because then you have 3 thermometers. The 2 that you threw in there, the one on the incubator, you can see if it had, if any 2 of those are reading the same temperature, that's probably the accurate one. But you might find that your incubator is maybe reading a degree low. So it may, or maybe it says it's, you know, I know you're in Australia, so you probably use Celsius, but I'm going to use Fahrenheit because I'm an American. We're backwards. It probably says, you know, like 99.5 degrees, but maybe it's actually 98.5 degrees inside the incubator. So that's what I would suggest checking just to make sure. All right, where are we at here? All right, J2J Laura says, okay, thanks. Well, you're welcome. Hopefully I answered something for you. You're talking to me. TH5526 says, no visible moisture on the windows. Verified hydrometer to 100% while wrapped in a cool cloth. This batch, that temp got away twice. Long story, so don't have high hopes. Candled shows some development. Well, hang in there, man. Hopefully they do hatch. I think you're doing the right thing with adding some sponges and things in there. Humidity is controlled. We talk about this all the time, but humidity is controlled by surface area, not by volume. So, you know, you can have like my soda can here. And this is soda. It's not somebody thought it was a Bud Light one time. No, it's my soda can here. This amount of liquid is going to produce less humidity than the same amount of liquid in a container that has a wider mouth like this, because it's the surface area of the water that controls the humidity. And you're right, by adding a soaked sponge in there, there's lots of pores in there, lots of surface area. It's not going to stay soaked for very long. It's going to dry out, but you may have to, you know, keep pumping water on it like you're doing, but that's about all you can do. So hang in there, man. Hopefully you have a good hatch. All right, Walt says, bacon wrapped and barbecued instead of the crock pot. Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. Stuff a couple of jalapenos down in there too. Savage Gaming says, stopped in to say hi. Love the videos. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Native Illyrium says, what age can the quail have the cat food? They can have it whenever. I mean, they can do it from babies. You may have to grind it up a little bit because, probably grind it up a little bit because, you know, the cat food's awful big chunks. But they can, whenever. They can do it whenever. All right, Holiday Hills Dirt Patch says, hello, friend. Well, hello to you. Thanks for joining us. Walt says, looking into getting quail Whoa, I skipped something. Looking into getting quail chow shipped to you, Amazon Prime free shipping. Hey, that's not a bad suggestion, Walt. My experience has been that it's awful expensive online. Yeah, it's free shipping, but they may raise the price of it to make up for the shipping. But hey, you never know. Maybe you can find a good deal on there. I used to be able to get my dog food on Amazon cheaper than I could buy it at the local store. It's not so much the case anymore. It's not much more expensive, but it is slightly more expensive. So who knows? Maybe the quail food on there is a better deal for you. All right. And the bee chick says, rabbit may be aggressive toward them. I must have missed that. I'm not sure what the rabbits are going to be aggressive towards. They can be aggressive to guinea pigs. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody in here that I'm not seeing their comments for some reason. So if you're asking questions and I'm ignoring you, I don't mean to. I apologize for that. I may be just not being able to see your comments for one reason or another. I don't know if there's a way. Have I hidden people? I don't know. We'll check it out later. All right. Amy Little Farmer says, Chris, I bought my first quail from a less than reputable breeder. I had a lot of question or a lot of aggression towards each other. A raccoon took a few. How can I add more without more aggression? Not using that breeder again. Okay. First of all, quail can be aggressive anyway. So, I mean, maybe it was those birds that were real aggressive. You're almost always going to have some kind of problems when you try to add new birds in with your existing birds. They're going to fight a little bit at least. A couple of things that you can do. One is you're at the right time of year. Take all the lights away from them so that they get less hours of daylight and they go into, I don't know, how do you say not the breeding mode? I don't know, like if there's a anyway, they stop crowing, they stop laying eggs. That means they don't have all those hormones running through them. They're gonna be a lot more docile during that time. And then you can add your birds in. Now, there's been some people that have told me that, I can't remember who suggested to them. Was it My Shire Farms? Maybe. Was saying spray your birds down when you go to combine them with vinegar water. Like half vinegar, half water, and that's supposed to help. I don't know why it would. As far as I know, birds don't have much of a sense of smell, but maybe it does. You might try it and see. So that's a couple of things that you can do. Or you might, if you have multiple hutches, split up your existing birds into two groups and then try to add, put one in one set of hutches, one in the other, and add, take your new birds, split them into two groups, and mix them on the other, or put them in the hutch. Hopefully that makes sense. So you've got a decent mix of new and old birds in each hutch, and it's not just all these birds coming in with all the existing birds. They might be a little bit less likely to beat them up on that. Hopefully that helps. All right, the bee chick. Oh, another thing, if you're going to get eggs, I should say, if you're going to get eggs and order eggs in to hatch, try adding your birds, your young birds, into the existing flock when they're about 3 to 4 weeks old. Maybe about 4 right now, depending on where you live. It may be a little cold for them at 3. Move them into your hutch before they hit maturity, though. About 4 weeks, 5 at the max. And I've had really good luck with that. Moving in younger birds with my older birds, it seems like they just don't. It doesn't even bother them. They don't fight with them at all. And I'm not going to say that's never going to happen, but it's very rare that I have any problems with my younger birds. Even once they hit maturity, it's like they're just part of the flock at that point, so it doesn't cause any problems. All right, what are we talking about here? The bee chick's asking you, Amy, what's your male to female ratio? We'll see if that gets answered. Vernie Young says, Chris, glad to catch you. Thought it was Friday. Sorry. Says, I did order from Kansas City, KCH, I think it is. And in about 10 days, we'll have more quail to go with my single quail. Very nice. Congratulations on your new birds. Hopefully your hatch is fantastic. All right, Angel says, the first mating with our buck was not successful. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Angel. Try again. That's all I can tell you with that. All right. Lauren says, a few questions. How long will Coturnix quail lay per year? On the high side, how much will they eat per day per bird? And how much do you sell 1 dozen eggs for? How long do they live? Boy, that is a couple of questions. Okay. How long or how much, how long will they lay per year? Well, they'll lay all year long if you have enough light. Okay, that's enough. Off. They'll lay all year long if you have enough light. 14 hours a day of light. If you keep that all winter long, they'll continue laying all year long. Let's see, on the high side, how much will they eat per day per bird? You know, I did a study on that a while back. I don't remember the actual outcome of that. It's not a lot. Let's see, where was that video? I can't give you the specifics on it. It's not a whole lot, but I don't remember the exact, so I can't tell you how much they eat per day. Let me see if I can find that video real quick. Maybe, actually, I don't think I have time to look for it. It's going to take me a little while. But there was a video about, like, I did a whole study on how much it costs to raise quail. You might look through my videos for, I think that may be what it was cost, or called, how much does it cost, or how much, you know, do quail eat, or something along that lines. And I answered that question in there, but I don't remember the specifics of it now. And then how much do you sell 1 dozen eggs for? I don't really sell eggs very often. When I do sell eggs, I typically sell a dozen eggs for, you know, about, if they're fertile eggs and they're hatching eggs, you can usually find eggs for about 50 cents a piece. I usually sell them for about 25 to 30 cents a piece if I'm selling them here locally. And I'm not set up to ship eggs, so I don't really sell them on a regular basis. But around here, that's typically what they go for. How long do they live? You know, they can live 3 to 4 years. And look at that. Lars came in with the 200 Danish, whatever it is, super chat. Thank you so much, Lars. I appreciate that. You're so generous. You come in, you know, every other week or so and just throw money at me. It's such a nice thing, and never expect anything in return from it. Don't even have a question to ask. Max, what are you doing? Off. Off. Down. You're going to have to be patient, pup. Down. Okay. He wants out. Again, thank you so much for that, Lars. I appreciate that. That's so very kind of you. How long do they live? Like 4 or 5 years, but they're really only super productive for about, you know, about 2 years, 2.5. You might get 3 years out of them, but they really start to drop off on their egg production after about 2 years. All right. All right. So Walt wants to know how the raccoons are getting your quail. Let's see if I can skip a couple of these. I'm going to let Walt ask his questions to you guys. No offense, Walt, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to see if I can get to a couple more of these questions and get those answered. TH5526 says, any idea if the birds that happen to survive and hatch via a terrible incubation process would be stronger or weaker? Kind of would think that it would have to be a strong bird to survive, but I don't know. Yeah, I would kind of think that too, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, you just have to check them out and see. But yeah, that logic makes sense to me. They won't be any weaker, I don't think. All right. Heather Carlson, here's your shout out. Said I needed a shout out. There you go. You got it, Heather. All right. Angel says, however, he was just turned 5 months. What are we talking about? Oh, the mating, the buck that you mated, but it was no good. He was just turned 5 months. Yeah, give him a little bit of time. 6 months is usually about what you want. All right. That bee chick says it's noon in Australia. Oh, noon. Okay. All right. And goes on to say the temperature and humidity are all fine. I'll give it 48 hours and then intervene. I have multiple thermostats or thermometers in there already. Okay. Says we had the temp up to 100 degrees yesterday here, and today it's in the 70s. I'm guessing that might not be helping. I swap between Celsius and Fahrenheit all the time. Good. So you know what I'm talking about. Says I go back from the States. I got back from the States a few months ago, and the sponge is clever. Good. Okay, good. Hopefully, I'm glad you're keeping up with me on that, because I'm having a hard time keeping up with myself tonight. All right, where are we at here? Heather says, does it matter if I breed a small female rabbit with a big male rabbit? Depends on what you're talking about by small and big. I would not breed like a New Zealand buck to a dwarf rabbit. No, that's just not right. You don't want to do that. If you're talking about, you know, a little bit on the smaller side and a little bit on the bigger side, that's probably okay. But I would not breed an overly large buck with a small dwarf rabbit or anything like that. You don't want to do that. All right. Angel says, we have one doe that just does not want to mate. We have put her in the cage for 2 days. Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but and then took her to him in his buck cage. Oh, never mind. That makes sense. Okay. And she went for him. She tried to attack him. Yeah. It sounds like you might need a new rabbit. If it keeps being that difficult, then, you know, I would switch out and get a different rabbit. Let's see, the chick's saying the rabbit and aggression. Okay, in response to that, I was responding to what you were saying at the time. Rabbits may be aggressive if housed with quail, as they can be with other animals. Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that. I don't think they will. No problem with the confusion. Here's what you have to realize is there's a little bit of a delay from when I say something to when it gets on, when it actually plays on the screen. So there's probably, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds, maybe it's not that much. But there is a little bit of a delay. So by the time you're responding to it in the comments, it's long gone. So I've forgotten I said it already. So I apologize. I'm the one that's confusing sometimes. And then you go on to say the vinegar may help with the hormones when spraying down the birds. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. Maybe it is that. I don't know. All right. And you've got a good suggestion on I'm sorry. That bee chick has a good suggestion on the aggression with the birds as well. It says keep the male to female ratio to 1 to 4. If it doesn't, then reduce the number of male quails and females. Okay, yeah, that's a good suggestion. If you've got too many males, that may be causing some of the aggression. A lot of times it can be the females that are aggressive too, and you might be able to find the one that's the real aggressor, remove that one, and the rest of them just fall into line at that point. All right. All right. Where are we at here? See if we got anything. I'm sorry, I'm scanning through because we are out of time. I'm looking to see if there's any. I don't know if I missed any serious questions or not. I think I got it. I think I got most of them. All right. Thank you guys for joining, guys. I got to wrap this up tonight. Somebody says, hope you start feeling better. I'm not feeling too bad yet. I just feel like I got a cold coming on. And I don't know, a little spacey tonight for some reason. So hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully I get over it. I appreciate it. And I got to get out of here for the night. I got to go spend some time with the family. So hopefully my wife's home from work or soon will be home from work. Thank you guys all for joining me tonight. I appreciate that. All you guys that signed up for the solar light, thank you for doing that too. I saw all those emails coming through. Appreciate that. We'll be launching that probably around the 1st of November. We'll get the Kickstarter launched. So hopefully it goes well. We need 1,000 people to pledge into that so we get the funding goal, so we get to bring that to market. And keep an eye out. I'll send an email out, let everybody know when it's going live. So thank you again so much. God bless each and every one of you. We will see you guys again next week, hopefully. Take care.